Explaining the movie Cold Skin. Warning, spoilers ahead. The movie is set in 1914, right after the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, which eventually caused World War I. A young, nameless man travels to an isolated island in the South Atlantic to work as a weather observer. The man wants to live in solitude in this place far from civilization for 1 year until his replacement arrives. For the next 12 months, his entire world will consist of trees, rocks, a deserted cabin, silence, and the surrounding sea. He and the captain of the ship realize that the previous weather observer disappeared. The only inhabitant of the island is Gruner, the island's lighthouse keeper. Gruner greets both of them coldly. Gruner explains to them that the previous weather observer can't return with the ship because he died from typhus while swimming in the sea. The body was not found. The captain suggests the young man leave with him, but he refuses. The young man explores the island. He notices the strange rock circles on the beach. He returns to the cabin and discovers the diary of the previous weather observer. In the diary, he talks about a strange sea creature's attack. The same night, the man is tormented by the creatures. The man hides in the cellar and hits one of the creatures, causing them to escape. The next day, he calls Gruner to let him inside the lighthouse, but to no use. In the cabin, he finds a rifle and decides to defend himself from the creatures. He fortifies the cabin. That night, the creatures come, but the man kills them all. Ultimately, he has to retreat from the attack to start a fire because there were too many creatures to take on. The fire causes the creatures to escape, but fire ruins the cabin. The next morning, the man notices Gruner leaving the lighthouse. He decides to follow Gruner down the rocks where he finds a female sea creature. At the last moment, Gruner prevents the man from shooting the female creature. Gruner explains to him that she is tamed. At that moment, Gruner gives the man the name Friend. Gruner explains to Friend that the female creature is like a dog. She will never leave her master regardless of how ruthless he is. The female creature licks Friend's wound and it magically heals. Friend offers Gruner ammunition and other supplies in exchange for shelter. Gruner accepts the offer and tells Friend he can stay in the lighthouse. Friend wonders if the creatures keep coming because they want the female creature back. At night, more creatures attack. Friend passes out. Gruner gets angry at him because he's useless. Gruner tells him to do subordinate activities like bringing water. The next night, Gruner decides to lock Friend on the balcony with his gun so he can see if Friend can defend himself. The next morning, Gruner discovers Friend covered in blood, but still alive. Gruner and Friend settle into a routine. The creatures are attacking every night, and they're constantly on the watch. Soon, Friend discovers Gruner is having sex with the female creature. Friend likes the female creature and calls her Aneris. Gruner starts physically and sexually abusing Aneris. Friend remembers the reason why he came to the island, to find peace. One night, Gruner and Friend almost got killed by the creatures. Both are in the lighthouse and Gruner is bitten on the foot as he runs upstairs. Dawn approaches and the creatures leave for the sea. Aneris looks after Gruner's wounded foot. Friend notices that a ship is approaching. He tries to signal the ship, but Gruner stops him. Aneris tries to protect Friend, but Gruner gets really angry. Friend is walking down the beach and collecting whale bones and carving them. He shows one bone shaped like a ship to Aneris. She takes him to an abandoned boat on the island. Friend tells Gruner about the abandoned ship. Gruner says the boat is too small for the three of them to escape the island. Gruner admits he knew the boat was there. The boat remained from when a Portuguese man had used it to avoid shipwreck, but the creatures killed him. Gruner explains that the ship's cargo contained dynamite, but the only dynamite Portuguese man brought with him was waterlogged. Friend wants to explore the shipwreck, but Gruner does not want to. Soon, Gruner saw Friend and Aneris swimming together in a pool. Gruner gets jealous and changes his mind. He secretly hopes that Friend will die during his shipwreck exploration. They use the boat to row out of the wreck. Friend puts on an old diving suit to go down and find the dynamite. He successfully recovers some of the dynamite. He notices childlike creatures playing. After the dive, they discover that the dynamite is dry enough to use. Gruner and Friend have a plan to lure as many creatures as possible to the lighthouse before they set off the dynamite. They believe that the show of force will drive the creatures away. Gruner forces Daenerys to go to the balcony and sing to allure the creatures. The creatures come and attack. Unfortunately, Gruner fails to set off the dynamite. Friend runs to the top of the lighthouse to reconnect the detonator. He succeeds, and the blast kills many of the creatures. Then Gruner decides to set another set of dynamites closer to the lighthouse. This blast knocks out both Friend and Gruner unconscious. The next morning, Gruner with a bayonet finishes off the wounded creatures that are lying on the beach. Friend, after seeing one of the creatures wearing a necklace, believes that the creatures are much more civilized and peaceful than Gruner makes them out to be. Gruner, furious, throws the necklace into the sea. He explains to Friend that he had found Daenerys a few years ago as a baby crying trapped in a net. He rescued her, believing she now owes him her life. Gruner also said Daenerys always does the same thing over the years. She cries and runs away, but always comes back. The next night, the creatures don't attack. They hear a growling sound coming from the sea. Friend believes the Daenerys is in mourning. Daenerys is missing. Gruner drank himself to sleep, and a deck of cards has fallen on the floor. Inside the card case, Friend finds a photo of a young Gruner with his wife. The words "love, love, love" are written on the back of the photo. Gruner has a realization that Gruner is a fake name, and the previous weather observer had not died. Gruner is the previous weather observer. He has gone crazy by his loss and isolation. Friend takes a walk down the beach and notices child creatures in the sea. He tries to be friendly and prepares a circle of stones on the sand and a carved bone boat in the middle. He returns to the lighthouse and goes to the balcony. He uses his binoculars to check his carved bone boat on the beach. He notices the boat is still on the beach untouched. The next morning, while walking down the beach, Friend discovers the circle of stones empty. The little creatures took the bone-carved boat. He notices the child creature in the distance and leaves the torch he was carrying on the beach. He puts his arms up, showing the child creature he means no harm. The child creature approaches him, and soon after, other creatures appear also. Daenerys also returns, and she looks more confident. Just when the child creature wanted to give the bone-carved boat back to Friend, their encounter Gruner interrupts by firing a gun. Friend tries to explain to him that the creatures who are behind Daenerys want peace. Gruner commands Daenerys to come back to him, but she refuses. At that moment, Gruner starts to scream. No one leaves Gruner. He runs back to the lighthouse and shoots a flare at the child creature. The flare strikes the child in the chest and kills him. Friend tries to stop Gruner while he is firing flares. After the struggle, he throws him to the ground and stabs him in the leg. Gruner attempts to kill Friend with an axe. At that moment, Friend reveals to the creatures that Gruner is the missing weather observer and urges Gruner to stop. Friend keeps telling him that Aldor Vigeland is not a murderer. Gruner is struck by these words and repeats, "Love, love, love." Gruner drops the axe, opens the door, leaves the house, and wobbles outside, giving himself to the sea creatures. Sometime later, the next ship arrives to replace Friend. The three officers mistake him for Gruner, but Friend does not correct them. In fact, he tells them the weather observer died of typhus. He decides to maintain the role, reflecting that this is the peace he was looking for. The movie ends with Daenerys running along the beach freely before jumping back into the sea.